The Galactic Military Academy's combat arena fell silent as Cadet Sarah Chen walked onto the sandy floor. Well, almost silent. The clicking, hissing, and growling laughter from the observation decks above made it clear what most species thought of humanity's latest recruit. Sarah kept her eyes forward, her boots crunching against the coarse training ground. Behind her, padding on short legs with surprising speed, came Artemis. The honey badger's gray and black fur rippled as she moved, her small dark eyes taking in everything around them. To most of the alien cadets watching from above, the creature looked like a joke. A tiny, waddling animal that barely reached Sarah's knees. Commander Vexthor, a towering craveen with midnight blue scales and teeth designed to tear through bone, stood at the arena's edge. His reptilian eyes gleamed with something between amusement and contempt. "Cadet Chen!" His voice boomed across the space, amplified by the arena's systems. "You understand the purpose of today's exercise?" "Yes, Commander," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the mocking calls from above. "Bonded combat assessment. My companion and I must survive against 3 Predator-class cadets and their bonded partners for 10 minutes. The craveen's laugh was like rocks grinding together. "Survive? How optimistic." He gestured with one clawed hand toward 3 massive figures emerging from the opposite entrance. "Meet your opponents." First came Thresh, a Vantok warrior whose species had conquered 12 systems through pure military might. His bonded companion was a razor spine, a creature that looked like a cross between a wolf and a porcupine, covered in venomous quills that could be fired at targets. The beast weighed at least 300 pounds and stood nearly as tall as Sarah. Second was Krisha, a Felinar whose people had evolved from ambush predators on a world where everything hunted everything else. Her golden fur and retractable claws marked her as dangerous even without her companion, a shadow stalker that could bend light around itself to become nearly invisible. Its purring growl made the air vibrate. Third came Drogath, another craveen like the commander. His bonded partner was a siege breaker, an armored quadruped with a club-like tail and natural armor plating that could deflect most projectiles. It snorted and pawed the ground, eager for violence. The 3 warriors and their companions took their positions, spreading out to encircle Sarah and Artemis. From above, the laughter grew louder. Someone shouted something about soft mammals and death world delusions. Sarah had heard it all before. Humans were new to the galactic stage, and Earth's creatures seemed pathetic compared to what evolution had produced on older, harsher worlds. Sarah knelt down and scratched Artemis behind her small, rounded ears. The honey badger made a soft chittering sound and looked up at her with those dark, fearless eyes. "You ready, girl?" Sarah whispered. Artemis's response was to yawn, showing her teeth. Small teeth, the observers would note. Nothing like the sabers and fangs the other predators possessed. Commander Vexthor raised his hand. "Standard rules apply. No lethal force, but injuries are expected and accepted. Fight until submission or time expiration." His hand dropped. "Begin!" Thresh moved first, confident and aggressive. His razor spine bounded forward, launching a volley of quills toward Sarah and Artemis. Sarah dove left, rolling behind a rocky outcropping, but Artemis didn't dodge. The honey badger barely seemed to notice the quills that buried themselves in the sand around her. One actually struck her shoulder, but she simply shook it off and kept moving forward. The arena grew quieter. That should have hurt. Krisha's shadow stalker disappeared, activating its camouflage. It was a classic tactic that worked on most opponents. Wait until they were distracted, then strike from behind. Sarah kept her eyes moving, watching for the telltale shimmer of bent light. But Artemis wasn't watching. She was smelling. Her nose lifted, twitched, and then she was moving with sudden shocking speed toward what appeared to be empty air. The honey badger's jaws opened and she lunged, catching the shadow stalker by its hind leg just as it materialized to attack Sarah from behind. The shadow stalker yowled and tried to shake Artemis off, but the honey badger's grip was absolute. Her thick skin and loose hide meant the stalker's claws couldn't get purchase. When the larger predator rolled, trying to crush Artemis beneath its weight, the honey badger simply went with the motion and bit down harder. Drogath's siege breaker charged in, its armored head lowered like a battering ram. 2 tons of muscle and bone plate thundered across the arena floor, aimed directly at Artemis. Sarah's heart jumped into her throat. No matter how tough Artemis was, that impact would break bones. Artemis released the shadow stalker and turned to face the charging behemoth. She didn't run. Honey badgers don't run. At the last possible second, she sidestepped with impossible agility and raked her claws across the siege breaker's eye as it passed. The armored beast bellowed in pain and confusion, crashing into the arena wall hard enough to crack stone. The laughter from above had stopped completely. Thresh snarled and charged in himself, his razor spine following. They moved to flank Artemis from 2 sides, a coordinated attack that should have been overwhelming. Sarah started to move to help, but stopped. She'd learned in their months together that Artemis didn't need saving. Artemis didn't understand the concept of needing to be saved. The honey badger twisted between them with liquid grace, too low and too fast for the larger predators to track properly. Her teeth found the razor spine's leg, biting through fur and muscle to bone. When Thresh tried to grab her with his clawed hands, she simply climbed up his arm like a ladder, claws digging through his combat suit, and bit his shoulder hard enough to make the massive Vantok warrior scream. Krisha approached more carefully now, her earlier confidence replaced with wariness. Her shadow stalker limped beside her, no longer invisible, dark blood matting its fur where Artemis had torn into it. The Felinar's golden eyes were wide, reassessing everything she thought she knew about Earth creatures. Artemis dropped from Thresh's shoulder as he stumbled backward, clutching his bleeding arm. The honey badger landed on all 4s, completely unfazed. Her gray and black fur was barely ruffled. There was blood on her muzzle, but none of it was hers. The siege breaker had recovered and was circling again, but cautiously now, keeping distance. The razor spine was limping badly. The shadow stalker kept trying to activate its camouflage and failing, too injured and frightened to maintain the ability. Commander Vexthor's voice cut through the stunned silence. 5 minutes remaining. Sarah finally moved, positioning herself to cover Artemis's blind spot. Not because the honey badger needed it, but because they were a team. That's what the exercise was about. Trust, partnership, understanding that you were stronger together than apart. The 3 opposing cadets regrouped, conferring quickly. They were injured, shocked, but still dangerous. They came at Sarah and Artemis together this time, all 3 warriors and all 3 companions in a coordinated assault. Artemis met them head-on. What followed was less a fight and more a display of pure, relentless determination. The honey badger moved like violence given form. She was everywhere at once, too tough to hurt, too fierce to intimidate, too stubborn to quit. Every time one of the larger predators thought they had her pinned, she twisted free. Every time they thought they'd finally wounded her, she kept coming. Her thick skin absorbed blows that should have ended the fight. Her loose hide meant grabs and holds slipped off. Her complete lack of fear meant she took risks that paralyzed her opponents with their audacity. She climbed the siege breaker's armored back and bit its neck until it collapsed. She tore into the razor spine until it submitted with a whimper. She chased the shadow stalker until it fled the arena completely, its survival instincts finally overriding its training. By the time Commander Vexthor called time, all 3 opposing cadets had submitted. Thresh was on one knee, panting, his shoulder bandaged by emergency medical drones. Krisha sat on the ground, staring at Artemis with something like religious awe. Drogath was dragging his siege breaker toward the medical station, both of them defeated. Artemis trotted back to Sarah and sat down, licking her paws clean as if she'd just finished a light snack, rather than defeating 3 of the Academy's top predators and their bonded companions. The arena was absolutely silent now. Thousands of eyes from dozens of species stared down at the small Earth creature that had just redefined their understanding of what made a predator dangerous. Commander Vex Thor descended into the arena, his expression unreadable. He stopped in front of Sarah and looked down at Artemis. "That creature," he said slowly, "is from Earth?" "Yes, Commander," Sarah replied. "Specifically from Earth's African continent. The honey badger has a reputation there. There's an old saying about them." "Which is?" Sarah smiled slightly. "Honey badger don't care." The commander's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "They're not the biggest, not the fastest, not the strongest," Sarah said. "But they're fearless. They fight lions, buffalo, even elephants. They raid beehives despite being stung thousands of times. They've been recorded eating venomous snakes while being bitten. They have thick skin, loose hide, and an attitude that says nothing in the universe can stop them." She looked down at Artemis with genuine affection. "They just don't quit. Ever." Vex Thor was quiet for a long moment. Then he raised his voice so everyone in the arena could hear. "Let this be a lesson. Size does not determine strength. Appearance does not determine capability, and assumptions are the first step toward defeat." He looked directly at Sarah. "Well fought, Cadet Chen. You and your companion have earned respect today." As Sarah walked out of the arena with Artemis trotting beside her, she could hear the whispers from above. Not mocking now, questioning, wondering what other surprises humanity and Earth might have in store for the galaxy. Sarah reached down and scratched Artemis behind the ears again. The honey badger made that soft, chittering sound, completely unconcerned with having just become a legend. After all, honey badger don't care.